Welcome to the twisting nether. Well, technically yes, but rather welcome to Netherlight Temple, which is in the twisting nether. I love the design of this place. The light on one side and the void on the other. It's so priest. Just really great. You can see in the back there, that's the Twisting Nether. The fact that this place is in the Twisting Nether does play a role in the campaign of the priest in Legion. Over here is the book with the lore of the Legion artifact weapons, which we are going to be going over today. If you can't tell by the weapon, we are going to be starting off with the spec that I don't play. Discipline. Not that I don't, I don't think Discipline is bad. Because it's not. It's good. It's just not for me. You know, it emphasizes putting shields on allies and then taking damage and dealing damage to do healing. And it's a spec that it's not for me. Let me put it that way. It's just not for me. I only play mainly Holy and Shadow. But we're going to be starting off with Discipline. The Word of the Conclave. Oh no, the Conclave. Let's get that out of here. Oh, wait. Calm down. Wrong Blizzard game. Not that Conclave. Not the Protoss Conclave. Nope. Juves, Historian of the Conclave. Light's Wrath. This is the upgrade appearance. Before you took up Light's Wrath, many pious warriors and devout priests tried to control it. All failed. Let their shortcomings serve as a lesson and a warning. Noble intentions are not enough to harness this staff's formidable power. You must sharpen your focus to a blade's edge and make your will as unyielding as steel. For the moment that your discipline falters, this weapon will claim you as it has all others. The thing that disappointed me about this was also that it was the same quest, the exact same quest as the one where you get the Arcane Mage weapon. And that just kind of was like, oh, there's no uniqueness to the quest to get this weapon. Plus, it's not as cool as Aluneth in the fact that Aluneth actually talks to you. Now, maybe the lore here will actually help kind of make that a more positive outlook. Years ago, the fanatical Scarlet Crusade set out to create a staff of unparalleled holy might. Oh, great! This is a staff made by the Scarlet Crusade. We're off to a great start. A weapon that would rival even the legendary Ashbringer in righteous fury. The Ashbringer derived its power from a shadowy artifact that had been purified in the light and affixed to the blade. Remember, the Ashbringer is made from the body of a Naru. The Scarlet Crusade sought to do the same for its staff. Or for its staff. I emphasized that wrong. The Order sent its most loyal crusaders into the war-torn Plague Lands in search of a suitable relic. The few who returned bore a strange jewel bristling with darkness. Some sources say that it had been part of a truncheon carried by one of the first Death Knights to walk the world. Other accounts hint that the dreaded Lich Kel'Thuzad had shaped the jewel with his spectral hands. Whatever the truth, the Crusade would use the black gem to create the staff known as Light's Wrath. 10 of the Scarlet Crusade's learned priests gathered in Hearthglen to create Light's Wrath. For weeks they practiced a ritual that would purify the dark jewel and bind it to the staff. What they never accounted for was a demon in their midst. A Nathrazim named Balnazar had infiltrated the Crusade and assumed the identity of its leader, Sidon Dathrohan. When the demon learned of the plans to forge Light's Wrath, he feared that such a weapon could unmask his deception and shatter his hold over the Crusade. Balnazar disrupted the cleansing ritual, and the Crusaders lost control of their delicate spellwork. A storm of holy energy ripped through the meeting place, instantly killing the 10 priests. Yet Light's Wrath was left intact. The blast had purified the jewel and affixed it to the staff. Upon close inspection, Balnazar found that the staff trembled with unstable energies. Wielding it with any reliability would be near impossible. Rather than destroy the weapon, the demon allowed the Scarlet Crusade to keep it. He looked forward to the mayhem that it would cause in the years to come. A letter from Grand Inquisitor Isilian to the High General Abendus of the Scarlet Crusade. You remember them, right? I received your last letter, and I understand your concerns, but in terms of raw power, Light's Wrath has surpassed our wildest expectations. The recent battle near Tyr's Hand is proof of this. The Scourge outnumbered our righteous warriors 20 to 1. It would have been a massacre if not for Light's Wrath. The staff's blazing light carved through the Scourge like a scythe through wheat, leaving none behind. It is true that Light's Wrath killed its wielder and many of the soldiers at his side. It is also true that the surviving Crusaders have been left dumbstruck, unable to dress or feed themselves without assistance. But at a ratio of 20 to 1, I consider such losses acceptable. Yeah, that's another good example of why the Scarlet Crusade was awful. Absolutely awful. From the Hunt for Light's Wrath, compiled by the Kirin Tor of Dalaran. Detected another explosion of holy energy in the Plague Lands, the 5th in the last year. This recent disaster bears all the similarities of the others. Light's Wrath is to blame. From what I can gather, the Scarlet Crusade raided a small village in search of the Scourge. They used Light's Wrath to cleanse the living townsfolk, thinking that they were afflicted by the plague of undeath. This went on for some time before the priest using the staff lost control of its power. What was once the town square is now nothing more than a smoldering crater, filled to the brim with bodies. As before, the weapon was gone by the time I arrived. Some other fool crusader likely has it. I should have never volunteered for this task. Iseren of the Kirin Tor. Of all the Scarlet Crusaders who bore Light's Wrath, Inquisitor Halbin had the greatest chance of success. His discipline and calculated focus were unmatched among the other Order's members. In the Scarlet Monastery, Halbin put the staff's powers to use, torturing Forsaken prisoners. He seared his captives with holy fire, extracting information for the Crusade to utilize in its war against the undead. The more Halbin interacted with the Forsaken, the more he grew to loathe the cursed beings. He no longer cared about gathering intelligence from them. He simply wanted to hear their screams. During one night of feverish torture, Halbin's anger overwhelmed his thoughts. His hold over Light's Wrath slipped. It was only for an instant. That was all it took to seal the Inquisitor's doom. An explosion rocked the torture chamber and engulfed Halbin in holy fire. It is said that he died a slow death, his howls of agony ringing through the monastery for days on end. It is unknown exactly when Light's Wrath slipped between the Scarlet Crusade's fingers. Eventually, the staff fell to the care of a priest named Jakar. The devout troll was a member of the Horde Expedition, a mighty force sent to wage war against the Scourge in Northrend. Aboard a zeppelin en route to the warfront, Jakar practiced harnessing Light's Wrath. She dreamed of smiting the Scourge with the weapon, of making the undead pay for all the lives that they had destroyed. Over Northrend, a fierce storm knocked the zeppelin from the sky, and the dirigible plummeted to the icy tundra. Though every passenger survived the crash, they had no time to celebrate. They had landed deep within Scourge territory. Jakar's intense training paid off. She wielded Light's Wrath with precision and decimated the Scourge. Under her guidance, the Horde fighters carved a path through the enemy lines and reached safety. In Northrend, Jakar became the bane of the Scourge. She purified the land of undead with Light's Wrath, leaving a trail of holy fire wherever she went. Her heroics earned her high praise from the Horde's commanders, but Jakar was not satisfied with words alone. No matter how many members of the Scourge she destroyed, it was never enough. Jakar always wanted more. She became single-minded in her quest, often putting her Horde allies at risk. Though she cleansed more and more undead, there was a price. With each day that passed, thoughts of retribution consumed her, and her iron hold over Light's Wrath began to slip. From the Hunt for Light's Wrath, compiled by the Kirin Tor of Dalaran. Another incident, this time in Northrend. A Horde priest named Jakar found the staff, by all accounts, very knowledgeable in the light. Remarkably, she used the weapon for some time against the Scourge before the accident. Jakar led a small force of Horde deep behind Scourge lines. The priest wreaked havoc on the undead before she lost control of Light's Wrath. A lance of holy magic erupted from the weapon, injuring the Horde soldiers and permanently blinding Jakar. They barely made it back alive. The troll seems quite humbled by the ordeal. She has vowed to spend the remainder of the war using her powers to heal, rather than to destroy. Regarding the staff, Jakar and the other soldiers abandoned it while retreating from Scourge territory. If I have any luck at all, the weapon will be where they left it, out there in the wastes. It's a good thing I packed my winter robes. Isran of the Kirin Tor. After Jakar abandoned the staff in Northrend, Light's Wrath found its way back to the Eastern Kingdoms. The staff passed from one owner to the next. Kind-hearted priests and paladins bore the weapon to heal the sick and protect the innocent, but none could wield it for very long. In time, the mysterious Dark Riders learned of its whereabouts. These hooded horsemen originated from the Tower of Karazhan. They spent their days stalking the land, procuring artifacts and relics of great power. A Dark Rider named Eredin was the first to try to take up Light's Wrath, and the last. The moment that his cursed hand touched the staff, a wave of holy energy erupted from the weapon. So pure was the magic that it drove the Dark Riders away and sent them slinking back to their haunted tower. It was one of the few artifacts that they would ever willingly abandon. Perhaps the only one. From the Hunt for Light's Wrath, compiled by the Kirin Tor Dalaran. Praise the light, the staff is finally in my grasp. I tracked Light's Wrath to the cultists of the Twilight's Hammer. They had recovered the staff, and were planning to reverse the purification ritual performed on it some years ago. In so doing, the cultists would have transformed Light's Wrath into its antithesis, a weapon of pure darkness. I stormed the Twilight's Hammer encampment just before the cultists completed their ritual. Their resistance was short-lived, and I dealt with them quite handedly. Far be it from me to brag, though I think I have earned the right to after this mad quest. Expect me in Dalaran shortly with this blasted staff. An untitled missive, from the Kirin Tor's archives, author unknown. I report with great sadness that Isran has perished. While preparing Light's Wrath for transport to Dalaran, he inadvertently triggered its powers. It seems that the spell that he cast to lock the staff in a protective shield caused an explosion of holy energy. I know this comes as quite a shock. Isran was always an attentive and calculating man. He knew more about the staff than any of us. But perhaps that knowledge made him careless. We have taken precautions so that we do not repeat this mistake. 7 Magi have sealed Light's Wrath in dampening runes. We will arrive in Dalaran soon to deposit the staff in the Nexus Vault, which goes into the quest for us to get it. So, a staff that was made by the Scarlet Crusade and then used by Jakar against the Scourge. Yeah. Now, this next one for Holy. I mean, it looks like a Naru. Ture, Beacon of the Naru. Ture is one of the purest physical embodiments of the light in existence. The dynamic energies that flow through this artifact can heal wounds both physical and mental. They can inspire hope in times of overwhelming darkness, and fortify timid hearts with courage. But perhaps Ture's greatest strength is what we can learn from its past. If there is one thing to take away from its history, is this. Even one brave soul wielding the light can save the lives of thousands. The Draenei have many legends about the benevolent Naru. Few are as cherished as the tale of Ture. Like other Naru, Ture vowed to protect all mortal civilizations in the universe from the clutches of darkness. This noble quest eventually led the holy being to a world called Karkora. Its mortal denizens faced annihilation at the hands of a monstrous entity known as Demencius, the All-Devouring. As Demencius shrouded Karkora in void energies, Ture expended its own life force to spare the world from doom. The Naru shattered into fragments and sparked a colossal holy nova. The energy cascaded over Karkora, washing away the void and banishing Demencius from the world. From the Draenei Holy Tome entitled Lessons in Hope and Sacrifice. Ture had shattered, but even broken, its light was undiminished. Each piece blazed like a star, drawing Naru from the far corners of creation. They scooped up Ture's glittering fragments, and they sang songs of sacrifice that had saved a world. The Naru had gifted these shards to various races that they believed showed potential for good. The largest piece of Ture was passed to our own ancestors, the ancient Eredar of Argus. It is said that this artifact plummeted from the sky like a falling star. Night turned to day, and Ture's glorious light painted the heavens in shades of gold for a full week. The Eredar were highly erudite people who cherished learning, and they studied Ture with great curiosity. The first among them to truly harness the artifact's power for good was the wise leader named Velen. During Velen's time, a strange curse spread across Argus. The victims found their minds addled, their memories diminished. Few things terrified the Eredar as much as losing their precious knowledge. They reacted with fear and paranoia. To prevent others from contracting the affliction, many of the Eredar considered quarantining the cursed or even banishing them from Argus. Yet Velen would not abandon his people. At great risk to himself, he walked among the cursed with Ture in hand. Velen called upon the artifact's powers and cured all of the stricken Eredar. An excerpt from The Corruption of the Eredar and the Flight of the Draenei by the historian Lore. When Sargeras came to Argus to corrupt the Eredar, nearly all fell under his sway. Velen and his followers were the exception. With the Naru's help, they embarked on a harrowing escape from their home. The going was not easy. Demons awaited the fleeing Eredar at every corner. Despair gripped the renegades, and many even considered giving up. It was during this dark and trying time that Velen brought Ture to bear. Its brilliant energies shone before the renegades and renewed their dwindling confidence. Emboldened by the artifact, Velen's followers believed that they could do the impossible, that they could complete their daring flight from Argus. And so they did. From that day forward, the renegades called themselves the Draenei. It is a name that everyone on Azeroth now knows, but if not for Ture, perhaps the Draenei would have never come to be. Aboard a dimensional fortress called the Genadar, the Draenei fled across the stars. The demons pursued them relentlessly. I almost feel like wanting to read this as a Draenei, just because I've grown so accustomed to hearing their way of talking, especially Velen's. The Genadar. The Draenei fled across the stars. The demons pursued them relentlessly, determined to punish the renegades for escaping corruption. The long millennia that followed were harsh on the Draenei. They could not rest. The threat of capture haunted their dreams. To defend themselves against the Legion, many turned to Ture and other holy artifacts brought from Argus. The Draenei studied these artifacts and honed their connection to the light under the tutelage of Velen and the Naru. A student named Askara showed more promise than the rest. In time, she would earn the right to carry Ture, and she would become one of the greatest healers that the Draenei would ever know. Askara had lost her entire family on Argus, but she found a new one aboard the Genadar. She saw the Draenei as her brothers and sisters, and she vowed to do whatever she could to protect them. Yet she was not gifted with physical strength or a talent for forging armaments. Instead, she turned to the light. Her mastery of holy magic became so great that Velen eventually gave Ture to her. Askara spent her every waking hour studying the artifact and unlocking its extraordinary potential. It was during this time that Askara received a vision of the future. She foresaw her people finding a sanctuary from the Legion, a new life, a new world to call home. But strangely, she did not see herself there. The Draenei visited many different worlds in search of a safe haven, but they rarely stayed for very long before the Burning Legion would learn of their whereabouts. Before the demons could confront them, the Draenei would gather aboard the Genadar and disappear into the stars once again. The Legion's relentless pursuit bred depression and pessimism in many Draenei, but they did not suffer in silence. Askara sought out her forlorn kin and spoke to them of their troubles. She carried Ture with her at all times, the relic casting an aura of holy magic around her that lifted the other Draenei's spirits. It is true that the Legion is vast and mighty, but they do not stand in the light as we do, Askara often said. No matter how strong our enemy is, if they walk in the darkness, they will always stumble and fall. From the Draenei Holy Tome entitled The Second Son of Shargel, or Shargel. The Burning Legion had lain in wait for us on Shargel, watching as we disembarked from the Genadar and set foot on the world. We believed that we had found a place to settle, a place to start over again. We were wrong. Fell portals screamed open all around us, spewing forth doom guards, fellhounds, and other horrors. The Legion's forces cornered us, cutting off our retreat to the Genadar. I thought we were done for. And then I saw her. I saw Askara. She planted herself between us and the demons, Ture held high. A storm of light erupted around her, blinding the Legion's minions and shielding us from their fell-touched blades. As we battled our way to the Genadar, Ture grew brighter and brighter until it shone like a second sun on Shargel. When the Burning Legion beset the Draenei on Shargel, Askara finally understood the strange vision of the future that she had seen so long ago. One day her people would locate a new home, but she was not fated to join them. She would die on Shargel to give them a chance to find that sanctuary. Askara and 70 other Draenei volunteered to distract the Legion. With their blood, they would buy the rest of the renegades the time to escape Shargel. The battle between the demons and these brave defenders would go on as one of the greatest instances of self-sacrifice in Draenei history. Hundreds of demons smashed into the 71 like a battering ram of fell-forged steel. But the defenders gave no ground, not a single inch. Every time a Draenei teetered on the brink of death, Askara was there. She charged through the battle lines and mended the wounded with Ture's holy light. Because of Askara, the 71 fought with the courage and strength of 1,000. Because of her, the Draenei race escaped annihilation. After the Battle of Shargel, Ture fell into the Burning Legion's hands. The demons had witnessed Askara's heroic stand, and they attributed her immense power to the strange artifact. Legion forces squabbled over control of the relic, before Kil'jaeden, the Deceiver, finally decided whom it would go to. He entrusted the artifact to an Eridar priestess named Lady Kalindris. She was one of the few demons who understood the Draenei's holy magics. What was more, Calindris had an intimate knowledge of Ture itself. Long ago on Argus, the priestess had acted as a caretaker of the Eridar's holy relics. It took years before Calindris finally bent Ture to her will. After a series of grim rituals, she transformed the artifact into a dark reflection of itself. Where once Ture inspired hope, now it would spread fear. Where once the relic healed, now it would cause wounds to fester. Lady Calindris relished bending Ture to her will and using its corrupted power against her foes. She loathed the Draenei, and the thought of befouling their cherished artifact delighted her to no end. Calindris grew so talented at wielding Ture that the demon Lord Kil'jaeden gave her a special task. She would serve as a torturer on the Legion's prison worlds. Calindris was well suited for this role. She made an art out of inflicting suffering on her captives, and images of Ture filled their nightmares. Much like Askara, Calindris eventually received a vision of the future. She foresaw the Legion invading the world of Azeroth and bathing it in fell fire. Strangely, Calindris herself was not there. But Ture was. A stranger wielded the artifact in its glorious true form, and its light blinded the Legion's forces, shining over the land like a second sun. Because, of course, that was us. And now, for one of the weapons. And I was waiting until I got this extra secret appearance before we did this. This is Xal'atath, the Blade of the Black Empire. And this is the Claw of N'Zoth secret appearance. I just recently got this to drop while doing a run in Emerald Nightmare. Because you had to get it to drop from Il'gynoth. You know, this thing. Yeah, you gotta get to drop from this guy here. Oh, by the way, if you want to get the secret appearance for Ture, you have to get exalted with the Valajar for some reason, and you apparently have to read a number of books if you want to get Light's Wrath secret appearance. But anyway, what do you say we read up on Xal'atath, the Blade Empire, the Blade of the Black Empire? By the way, I actually did a separate video where not only did we read this, but we also went over all the quotes because she talks to you. Yes, Xal'atath is one of the 3 weapons in this game that actually speaks with you. And she plays a role in BFA. And I've heard a speculative rumor that she may play a role in the following expansion, whatever that may end up being, but again, that's just speculation and rumors. Xal'atath, the Blade of the Black Empire. Hold on a second. Let me take a drink from my throat. Alright. An ancient and terrible force trembles deep within Xal'atath, Blade of the Black Empire. Though this dagger can serve as a powerful tool, probably not so beautiful with those eyes looking at you. In fact, why don't we, there we go. Probably make it a little bit more tall, there we go, with the shadow form look. A powerful tool for those who wield shadow magic. Tread cautiously. Xal'atath has a mind of its own. Ignore its maddening whispers. Do not trust the lies that it spins. Take from it what you need, but always remember that the dark presence in the blade is not your ally. Xal'atath had its dark genesis in an age long before the Horde and the Alliance. An age when the legendary old gods and their black empire engulfed the world in shadow. Which is also my pet here. Sorry, I just love having Shadow as my main priest pet. There are many theories concerning the blade's creation. The more outlandish claim is that it is all that remains of a forgotten old god who was consumed by its kin in the early days of the Black Empire. Other theories state that Xal'atath is the claw of Yasharaj, ripped from the old god's monstrous form and bestowed upon its servants for use in ritual sacrifices. Which, given that Yasharaj was literally ripped out of Azeroth by Aman'Thul, you could probably make a case for that. As unbelievable as these stories are, perhaps there is truth to them. Xal'atath pulses with the foul essence of the old gods. It is even said that the blade can grant its owner visions of the Black Empire. But all who have looked upon such horrors have lost themselves to madness. Mighty beings known as the Titanforged eventually defeated the Black Empire. They shackled the old gods and their minions in prisons beneath the earth. Harmony descended on Azeroth, but it was not to last. Xal'atath made sure of that. The blade remained in the world, passing from mortal hand to mortal hand, and leaving only death and chaos in its wake. One of the unfortunate souls who took up Xal'atath was a troll named Xando. The ambitious witch doctor hailed from the mighty Gurubashi tribe. His rivals had ousted him from a position of power and prestige, and Xando spent his days nursing dreams of retribution. It was a simple thing for Xal'atath to latch on to Xando's anger and twist him into a pawn. Guided by Xal'atath's whispers, Xando and a handful of loyal witch doctors sought out a strange mound of blackened stone. Troll mystics had forbidden their people from disturbing this site, but Xando ignored the taboo. He believed that the mound held great power that he could use to defeat his rivals. He and his followers would soon discover what the mound really was. The body of a slumbering servant of the old gods named Kithix. Xal'atath urged Xando to make blood offerings to the creature. With his mind corrupted by the blade, the witch doctor did not hesitate. He dismembered some of his companions with the dagger, and then he used their blood and organs as regents to awaken the monstrosity. In a final act, Xando buried his gore-stained dagger into Kithix's hide, and the giant rumbled to life. Xando and his followers were never seen again. Trolls would later visit the site and find only scattered bones, picked clean of flesh. After Kithix awakened, it brought the shadow of war upon Azeroth. The monstrous creature rallied other old god minions to its side and launched a campaign to grind troll civilization into dust. Unlike the trolls who had roused it, Kithix knew how to harness Xal'atath's true potential. Calling on the blade's power, the Cathrak spread pestilence among the trolls to weaken their bodies, and it bombarded them with visions of death to weaken their minds. Though the trolls would eventually destroy Kithix and defeat its armies, Xal'atath would haunt the dreams of the war's survivors until the end of their days. Many tribes would recount legends about the Black Blade that had nearly driven them to extinction. From Chapter 4 of Modgood's Doom, concerning the day the Dark Iron Sorceress acquired Xal'atath. Modgood embraced her clan's long history of studying arcane magic. As the wife of sorcerer Thane Thaurissan, or Thorisson, she had first pick of the Dark Iron's most powerful enchanted artifacts, yet she was never quite satisfied with the offerings on hand. Modgood would often dispatch her servants to find new relics that she could study and use as instruments in the creation of spells. One of these dwarves returned with a blade that thrummed with dark energy. Modgood was immediately taken by it. For days, she retreated into her archives to unravel the dagger's mysteries. At times, she could be seen talking to the weapon. When she later emerged, Modgood called for the dwarf who had brought the blade in order to thank him. No one could find him. No one could even remember his name or his face. It was as if he had simply vanished into thin air. From Chapter 23 of Modgood's Doom, concerning the battle between the Dark Clan and the Wildhammer clan in Grim Batol. War golems smashed through Grim Batol's gates, and the Dark Iron soldiers poured into the Wildhammer capital. Bitter rivals these two clans were. Neither side showed the other mercy. The Wildhammer's bravery was their greatest weapon, and Modgood sought to take that from them. Under the thunderous clash of hammer against axe, she screamed an incantation and wove her profane spellwork. She slid her enchanted dagger over her palm and let her blood spill onto the stones. Modgood's foul ritual brought Grim Batol's shadows to life. They sprang from the city's dark nooks and crannies, falling upon the Wildhammers with blades forged of night. From Chapter 27, recounting the final moments of the Dark Iron invasion of Grim Batol. By some feat of courage, Thane Cardros rallied his remaining Wildhammer warriors and launched a desperate counterattack against the Dark Irons. Cardros bullied through his enemies with the single-minded focus of a war golem, only coming to a stop when he found Modgood. Here, the fate of Wildhammer and Dark Iron would be decided. The sorceress unleashed her dark power on Cardros, but he pressed his attack. Then Modgood reached for her black blade, the weapon that had turned Grim Batol into a den of nightmare. It was not there. She had lost her cherished weapon, or, as some would claim, the weapon had abandoned her. With one mighty blow of his hammer, Cardros mortally wounded Modgood and secured victory for the Wildhammers. It is said that as the sorceress lay dying, she repeated one phrase over and over again. "You promised." By the way, Xal'atath actually comments on this little event. It's kind of interesting. Decades after Modgood lost Xal'atath, the blade was taken up by a human bishop named Natalie Celine. She had lived through the First War, when the Orcish horde invaded Azeroth and conquered Stormwind. After the war, Celine realized that to defeat the green-skinned orcs, humanity would need to study the strange powers that they wielded. She closely examined their magics, and she visited battle sites where their dark arts had befouled the land. From her investigations, she learned of an otherworldly blade that the orcs had once used in their bloody rituals, a blade that held sway over the shadows themselves. Troubled that such a profane weapon could exist, Celine swore to hunt it down and destroy it in the name of the light. From The Secrets of the Void by Natalie Celine. The moment that I touched the blade, a name was spoken in my mind. Xal'atath. I knew then that I could not destroy the dagger. Not yet. How can one defeat a power that she does not understand? And I had much to understand. Very much indeed. Xal'atath whispered to me in waking and in dreaming. It taught me that there is more to this world than light. There is also void. And the ebb and flow between these two forces, one can find power and knowledge beyond anything that the Church of the Holy Light has ever revealed to us. One can cross the divide between light and void. One can pull strands from each side and weave a tapestry of day and night. Of course, there are consequences. There always are when walking in the shadows. By the time of the Second War, Natalie Celine had learned how to wield shadow magic from Xal'atath. She had taught her dangerous arts to other worshippers of the light and rallied them against the Horde. Celine and her followers waged their war in secret, hunting down orcs across the human kingdoms. Xal'atath continued whispering in Celine's mind, slowly unraveling her sanity. Despite her noble intentions, she became more and more obsessed with the blade and the mysteries of the void. And so did Celine's companions. They were overzealous in their campaign against the orcs, putting innocent lives at risk. Some strayed too far into shadow, forsaking the light completely. Though Selene urged her followers to use caution, her calls were ignored and even treated with suspicion. It is unclear exactly what happened to the former bishop, but some sources state that Xal'atath incited rebellion among her allies. It convinced them that Selene was holding them back from their true potential, holding back knowledge and power that they could have if they killed her. In the dead of night, the conspirators murdered Selene and then took Xal'atath for themselves. For years, the Kirin Magi in Dalaran had watched Natalie Selene, greatly troubled by her dark teachings. After her death, they set out to scour her writings from history. Magi picked through the villages and cities. Selene had traveled, gathering up every scroll and tome that she had penned. The Kirin hid these writings in Dalaran, hoping that would be the end of Selene's dangerous brand of magic. Yet despite their efforts, they could not bury the doctrine of balance that she had preached. In the years to come, others would take up her teachings and devote themselves to the light and the void. The Magi also knew of Xal'atath, but they never found it. Like Selene's teachings, the blade would not simply fade away. It had more minds to twist, more pawns to use, and more innocence to terrorize. She also is voiced by a very wonderful voice actress who does a great job throughout Legion, and I loved that she came back to do more with this weapon in BFA. You know, it was mentioning this character named Selene, and I thought for a moment about a certain follower that I have. Well, now isn't that interesting? I'm sure it's no big deal that she's actually a follower for you in this expansion. That perhaps she wasn't murdered. But if you want to find out, you'll have to play a priest in Legion, which is not a bad campaign, and it intertwines with the Paladin campaign pretty well, actually. By the way, there are some other notable characters that you get to meet and interact with here in this campaign. For one, Alonzus Fowl, the priest, like the original great priest from back in Warcraft 1. This is Kalia Menethil. That's Arthas' sister. His older sister. Yeah. Now, this is her as she currently was in Legion. Let's just say something happens to her in BFA. And that's all I'm going to say. In case you want to find out more, you'll have to check it out. But I really hope that's something that they don't leave alone, that they don't abandon. I really want them to continue that, to actually make that something relevant, meaningful. Here, of course, is Moira Thowerson, because of course she would be here, because of course. And then we had some other interesting characters, like Mariella Ward here, probably one of the last survivors of the Scarlet Crusade who has turned away from them to join us, even though she continues to actually wear the Scarlet Crusade's robes. Eventually, I'm sure one of us will give her some new robes to wear. But, yeah. I also, of course, recommend it because playing, as you can probably guess, and I talked about this in the separate video I did just on Xal'atath, playing through the entire expansion just as a Shadow Priest with just Xal'atath, hearing all the different whispers, and she has a lot of fascinating things to say. Highly recommend it. So that is the lore on the Priest Artifact Weapons in Legion, and we'll be taking a look at another class's Artifact Weapons and their lore when we come back. Stay tuned.